I sat in the truck, my mind racing. The headlights from passing cars blurred as they reflected off the windshield. A strange calm had settled over me. The anger I felt towards Sarah, the shock from what I'd just discovered, was still there, but underneath it, something else was growing, something darker. I didn't know how long I sat there, but by the time I started the truck again, the world felt different. It was as though everything had shifted, as though the truth had cracked open in a way I couldn't ignore. My son, Ben, would never believe me, not right away anyway, and I wasn't sure if I could blame him. His wife, the woman he'd married, the mother of his child, she was a good actress. She'd been playing a role for years, fooling everyone, but not me. I knew better. I could feel the weight of the lies she'd been feeding us. They all added up now. I pulled into the driveway slowly, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. My hands gripped the wheels so tightly I thought they might bleed, but the grip was just a way to hold myself together, to keep my mind from spinning off into the abyss. Once inside the house, I tried to stay calm, tried to keep my breathing steady as I moved through the familiar space. The house I'd built with my own hands, brick by brick, floorboard by floorboard. It wasn't just walls and a roof. It was home. It was supposed to be a safe place. But right then, it felt like a cage. The moment I saw my wife, Carol, in the kitchen, I knew I couldn't hide it from her. She'd know something was wrong the second she looked at me. And yet, I found myself hesitating. Could I tell her? Could I even make sense of it all myself? "David, what's going on?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. She must have seen the look on my face. She didn't ask twice. "I need you to sit down," I said, motioning toward the kitchen table. She didn't question me. She just did it, folding her hands in front of her on the table. Her eyes never left me. I took a breath and started talking. I told her about the suitcase, the lake, the baby, my grandson. I told her what I'd done, and then, after a long silence, I told her what I planned to do next. At first, she just stared at me, her face pale, her lips trembling. I could see the fear, the disbelief. But then, slowly, her hands clenched into fists. She didn't say anything, not for a long time, but I could see the storm brewing in her eyes. "David," she said, her voice cold as ice, "you can't just keep this to yourself. You have to go to the police." "I will," I said, "but not yet." "Not yet." Her voice was rising now, and I knew this wasn't just about my decision anymore. It was about her need for justice, her need to do what's right. She had always been that way, always stood for what was right. "This isn't the way, Carol, not yet." "Why David?" she demanded. "Why the hell are you protecting her?" "I'm not protecting her, I'm protecting Ben." "Ben? You're going to protect Ben after what she did to their child?" I nodded. "Yes. Ben would never believe me if I told him now. He'd think I was crazy. And if I go to the police, she'll lawyer up, play the victim, and spin the whole thing into something else. They'll find a way to let her go. This needs to be handled differently." Carol's eyes softened for a moment, but then a look of realization crossed her face. "You're planning something, aren't you?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, willing her to understand. "I'll make sure she pays for what she did, but I'm not going to let her turn this around on us. Not yet." She stood up suddenly, her hands shaking. "This isn't you, David. But I'm not going to let her get away with it either." Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she just stared at me, defeated. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to wait. I'm going to give it time. Time to gather the evidence I need. Time to show Ben what kind of person his wife really is. And then I'll make her pay." Carol shook her head slowly. "David, this isn't justice. This is revenge." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. I wasn't sure myself anymore. The days that followed were a blur. I didn't go to the hospital to check on the baby. I didn't talk to Ben. I stayed in the background, watching, waiting. I had time, but every second of it felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something inevitable. I knew I couldn't keep this secret forever. Eventually, Ben would have to know the truth. But when the time came, I would make sure he understood. I would make him see what Sarah had done. I would make him see the monster behind the mask. But I couldn't do it yet. Not until I had all the pieces. The night I finally decided to make my move, I had it all planned out. I knew Sarah would be home, her act of normalcy just a cover. I knew she would be tired from playing the role of the loving mother, the dutiful wife. She'd come home like nothing happened. She'd lie, she'd deny, she'd make excuses. But I wasn't going to let her. I drove to their house late at night, my hands clenched tight on the steering wheel. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. Not anymore. When I got there, I parked a little ways down the road and walked up to the door. I rang the bell and waited. Sarah opened it, a look of surprise crossing her face when she saw me standing there. "David?" She stepped back, eyes darting around nervously. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer her right away. Instead, I just walked past her and into the house. "Where's Ben?" I asked, my voice low. "He's at work." Her voice trembled. "What's going on, David?" "I know what you did," I said, stepping closer to her. Her eyes went wide with fear. She stepped back, clutching the doorframe for support. No, you don't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're not fooling me, Sarah," I said, my voice steady but full of fury. "I know exactly what you did, and you're going to pay for it." "David, please," she begged, tears welling up in her eyes. "Please, you have to believe me. I didn't mean to—" "You don't get to explain yourself. Not anymore." I stepped forward, my hand on her arm, gripping it with enough force to make her flinch. "You thought you could get away with it. But I know. And I'm not going to let you get away with it." Sarah shook her head, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Please, David, don't—" But I didn't let her finish. I was done listening to her lies. I had no more patience for her manipulations. "I'll make sure Ben knows the truth," I said. "But you'll have to face the consequences, Sarah, and I won't stop until you do." I turned and walked out, not looking back. I didn't need to. I knew this was only the beginning. The house was dark when I got back. Evelyn was asleep upstairs. I didn't wake her. She'd been through enough already, watching our family fall apart piece by piece over the last 2 years. It started small. Ben missing Sunday dinners. Sarah making comments about our old-fashioned house, our simple life. Then Ben stopped returning my calls, stopped coming by the shop where I'd taught him everything about woodworking, where we'd built furniture side by side since he was 12. The wedding had been the final knife. The moment everything changed. I remembered standing in that reception hall, wearing the only suit I owned, the one I'd bought 20 years ago for my mother's funeral. Evelyn squeezed my hand when Sarah walked up to us, smile fake as plastic, eyes cold as winter. "David," she'd said, using my first name like we were equals, like she hadn't just married my son an hour ago. "We need to talk about your apartment." "My apartment?" I'd owned that place for 30 years, bought it when Ben was born, rented it out, used the income to pay for his college. Every damn textbook, every meal plan. That apartment had given my son his education. "Ben and I need it. We're expanding our portfolio. You'll have to move out by next month. It's just business." I'd laughed, thought she was joking, some kind of weird humor I didn't understand. "Sarah, that's not—" "Give me the keys." She held out her hand, perfectly manicured, diamonds on every finger, in front of 100 people, everyone watching, everyone listening. No. Her face changed. The mask slipped. Something ugly showed through. She raised her hand and slapped me across the face. Hard. The crack echoed through the hall like a gunshot. "You selfish old man," she hissed. "You've taken enough from Ben. This family doesn't need you anymore. A burden. We're cutting you loose." Ben stood 10 feet away, saw the whole thing. Our eyes met for just a second. I waited for him to defend me, to tell his new wife she was out of line, to be my son. He looked down at his phone, turned away, like nothing had happened. That was 8 months ago. I hadn't spoken to him since. Now I sat in my garage, tools hanging on the wall, each one a memory. The hammer I'd used to build Ben's first treehouse, the saw we'd used together to make Evelyn's kitchen table, and thought about the baby in the hospital. My grandson, who I'd met exactly twice. Both times Sarah had made excuses to leave early, pulling Ben away before we could really talk. Jake, that was his name, 6 months old, brown eyes like Ben's, same serious expression even as a baby. I pulled out my laptop, ancient thing that took 5 minutes to boot up, and started searching. Sarah's social media, her business, her friends. I needed to understand who I was dealing with. What kind of person tries to drown their own child? 3 hours later, I had a picture. Sarah Mills, formerly Sarah Kellerman, grew up in Connecticut money. Real money. The kind where you never worry about anything. Father was a real estate developer who owned half of Hartford. She'd gone to Yale, worked at a consulting firm in New York, met Ben at some charity event 3 years ago. On paper, she was perfect. Beautiful, educated, successful, ambitious. The kind of woman any mother would want for her son. But I found the cracks. A sealed juvenile record, couldn't access it, but the fact that it existed said something. A business partner who'd sued her for fraud 5 years ago. Case settled out of court with a confidentiality agreement. A college roommate's blog post, quickly deleted but archived, about Sarah's scary temper and complete lack of empathy. I printed everything, built a file, the first piece of my case. My phone buzzed, Ben's number. I stared at it for a long time before answering. "Dad." His voice was tight, scared. "Have you seen Sarah?" I paused. Careful now. Everything mattered from here on out. "No. Why?" "She left this morning, early, said she was going to her mother's in Connecticut, but her mum just called me an hour ago asking where she was, said she hadn't heard from Sarah in weeks. Maybe she needed some time alone. With the baby." His voice cracked. "Dad, she took Jake, packed up all his stuff, his crib, his clothes, everything. The nursery is empty, and she's not answering her phone. I'm worried. I know we haven't talked since the wedding, but I didn't know who else to call. So now he needed me. Now, when things were falling apart. I'm sure she's fine, son. You know Sarah. She probably just wanted a drive, some space. Being a new mother is hard." Yeah, you're right." He didn't sound convinced. Didn't sound like he believed his own words. "Sorry for bothering you. I know things are different now." Ben, but he'd already hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, wrestling with myself. Tell him his wife tried to murder his child. Tell him his son is safe in a hospital and his wife is a monster. But if I told him now, he wouldn't believe me. He'd side with Sarah, like he always did. She had her hooks in deep. She'd come up with some explanation. She'd make me look crazy. She'd take that baby and disappear. And next time I wouldn't be there to pull him out of the water. No, I needed evidence. I needed to be smart. I needed to make her confess. And I needed help. The drive to the new hospital felt like a lifetime, each mile stretching out as my mind continued to race. The image of my grandson, barely alive in that suitcase, kept flashing before my eyes. His tiny hands, blue lips, and the way he coughed when I pulled him out, they haunted me. Every breath he took seemed like a gift, a miracle. I had saved him, but the road ahead was just beginning. I kept my eyes on Jake, not letting myself look away. The paramedics were calm, efficient, but I could see their glances in the rearview mirror, the concern on their faces. They were just doing their jobs, but I knew there was something more to it. This wasn't just another case. This was personal. I needed him safe, and the farther away from Sarah, the better. The new hospital was small, tucked away in a quiet town where no one would know who Jake was or where he came from. I'd checked the place out before, made sure it was secure. No one would expect a baby like him to be there under the name John Doe. I couldn't risk anyone tracing him back to Sarah. Not yet. I needed to build my case first, and for that, Jake had to stay hidden. As the ambulance arrived, I stayed close, following them inside. The nurses were efficient, but I noticed the sharp looks they exchanged when they saw the baby. There was something more in their eyes, an unspoken awareness, but they didn't question it. They didn't need to. I wasn't going to tell them anything they didn't have to know. The fewer people who were involved, the better. I sat in the waiting area for what felt like hours. Every time the door opened, my heart skipped. But no one came to speak to me. No one asked any more questions. They were too busy, too focused on their own work, and that was fine by me. The longer I kept a low profile, the better. Eventually, the door to the room where Jake was being settled opened, and a nurse came out with a clipboard in hand. "Mr. Carter," she called softly. I stood up, walking toward her. She seemed almost hesitant, like she didn't know whether to say something, but I was too focused on Jake to notice her uncertainty. "How's he doing?" I asked. "Stable," she said. "His vitals are good. He's eating well. But Mr. Carter, you need to understand something. We're treating him as an emergency case, and there's some paperwork we'll need once things settle down. He's under a false name. If anyone asks for him, we need to be sure we're following protocol." "I understand," I said, my voice tight. "I just need him safe. That's all I care about." The nurse gave me a sympathetic look. "You're doing the right thing, but don't wait too long to involve the authorities. This is a delicate situation. If you wait too long, it could complicate things." "I'll get to it," I promised. "I just need a little more time." She nodded, though I could see the doubt in her eyes, but she didn't push any further. "If you need anything, let us know." I watched her walk back to the room, and for a moment, I let myself relax. Jake was safe for now, but I knew I couldn't rest. Not yet. There were still too many loose ends, too many pieces that didn't fit. The first step was Sarah. I had to find out what she was up to, what kind of damage control she was planning. She couldn't know about the hospital transfer, and I had to make sure she stayed in the dark for as long as possible. But I knew that wouldn't be easy. If she was smart, and she was, she'd be looking for him already. I had to be ready for when that time came. The next day, I met Frank Patterson again. I wanted to make sure the witness statement he'd offered was ironclad. The man had seemed trustworthy, but I wasn't about to take any chances. We sat in a small cafe, away from prying eyes, and I went over everything with him again. "Here's what I have so far," Frank said, sliding a notebook toward me. It was filled with details, dates, times, and notes from our conversation. "I've included everything you told me, the description of the car, the way she looked around before she tossed the suitcase. If you want to take this to the authorities, this should hold up." I skimmed over the pages. Everything matched what I had seen. Everything was precise, down to the smallest detail. "I appreciate this, Frank," I said, pushing the notebook back toward him. "But I'm not ready to go to the authorities just yet. I need to be sure. I need to get more evidence." Frank nodded. "I understand. But just remember, the longer you wait, the harder it'll be. She might cover her tracks." "I know," I said, clenching my fists. "But I need to make sure she's not going to get away with it. I won't let her." Frank studied me for a moment. Then, with a sigh, he pushed a piece of paper toward me. "Here's my contact information. You can reach me anytime. If you need help with anything, I'll be there. But don't wait too long, David." "I won't." I left the cafe with a sense of urgency, but also with a nagging doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Should I just go to the police now? Part of me knew I was playing a dangerous game, but another part of me, the part that had lived a life of hard decisions and tough choices, knew this was the only way to make sure Sarah didn't slip through the cracks. The days that followed were filled with little more than waiting. I kept an eye on Sarah, watched her every move. I drove by their house a few times, but she didn't seem to be acting suspicious. She was still playing the part of the doting mother, posting pictures of Jake on social media, acting like nothing had happened. But I knew better. Then, 4 days after I'd transferred Jake, I got a call. It was from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Carter," a voice said. "We've been trying to reach you." I sat up straighter. "Who is this?" "It's Detective Lawson. We have some questions regarding your grandson. We understand there was an incident at Morgan Lake. Can you come in for a statement?" My stomach sank. I had expected this call, but I hadn't expected it so soon. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. "I'll be there," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. As I hung up the phone, I felt the weight of the decision I'd been avoiding. The authorities were closing in. It was time to make my move. When I got home, Evelyn was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked at me with those tired eyes that had seen too much lately, eyes that used to sparkle when she looked at me. "You were gone early." "Couldn't sleep." "David." She set down her mug, the one I'd made her in pottery class 15 years ago, slightly lopsided, glazed blue. "What's going on? You've been different. Since the wedding. Since everything with Ben. You disappear at odd hours. You won't talk to me. It's like you're keeping secrets." I almost told her. But Evelyn was soft-hearted. She'd want to call Ben immediately. She'd want to fix things the gentle way. She didn't understand that some things couldn't be fixed gently. Some things required force. "I'm handling it," I said. "Handling what?" "Trust me. Please. Just a little longer." She studied my face for a long moment. 40 years of marriage meant she could read me better than anyone. She knew I was hiding something, but she also knew when to push and when to wait. "Okay. But when you're ready to talk, I'm here. I've always been here." I kissed her forehead. She smelled like coffee and vanilla lotion. Home, safety, everything I was fighting to protect. "I know." My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Carter." A man's voice. Deep, measured, educated. "We need to meet." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what Sarah did. Someone who can help you make this right. Someone who's been watching her for a long time." "How did you—" "The coffee shop on Maple Street. 1 hour. Come alone. Don't tell anyone about this call." He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, mind racing. This was wrong. This felt like a trap. But whoever this was, he knew about Sarah, knew about the baby. That meant he was either a threat or an asset. I had to find out which. "Who was that?" Evelyn asked. "Wrong number," I lied. She didn't believe me, but she let it go. The coffee shop was half empty. Monday morning. Most people were at work. I sat in the back corner, watching the door, my back to the wall. Old habits from construction sites where you always needed to see who was coming. At exactly 11, a man walked in. Late 40s, expensive suit, the kind that cost more than my truck. Dark hair greying at the temples. The kind of face you forget 5 minutes after seeing it. Average height, average build, completely unremarkable. That was intentional, I realized. This was someone who didn't want to be remembered. He ordered a black coffee, paid cash, and sat down across from me without asking. Up close, his eyes were sharp, calculating. He'd sized me up in 3 seconds. David Carter, 63 years old, retired contractor. 1 son, Benjamin, 32. 1 daughter-in-law you'd like to see behind bars. Who are you? Call me James. I'm a private investigator. I was hired to follow Sarah Kellerman 6 months ago. Document her activities. Build a case. Hired by who? Her father. James pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Thick, organized, professional. Richard Kellerman suspected his daughter was involved in some illegal activities. Financial fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. He wanted proof before he cut her out of his will. Wanted to make sure she couldn't contest it. I opened the folder. Bank statements, email transcripts, photos of Sarah meeting with various men in parking lots, exchanging envelopes, text messages discussing offshore accounts, forged signatures, shell companies. This is enough to put her away for 10 to 15 years. But Richard died before he could do anything with it. Heart attack. Very sudden, very convenient timing, don't you think? I looked up sharply. You think she... I don't think anything. I follow evidence, and the evidence says Richard had a medical exam 2 weeks before he died. Clean bill of health. Strong heart. No history of cardiac issues. Then he has dinner with Sarah, alone, at his house. The autopsy found nothing suspicious. Massive heart attack. Case closed. But you think she poisoned him? I think Sarah Mills is a sociopath who will do whatever it takes to get what she wants, including, apparently, murdering her own father and her own child. He leaned forward. I've been watching her. I saw her at the lake yesterday. I was too far away to stop her, but I saw her throw the suitcase. I was about to call the police when I saw you pull the baby out. You saved that child's life. Why didn't you call the police then? Because if I had, she'd walk. She always does. Rich family, expensive lawyers. She'd claim postpartum depression. She'd say she doesn't remember doing it. She'd get therapy instead of prison. And then she'd disappear with your grandson, and next time, no one would be there to save him. He tapped the folder. This is bigger than attempted murder. This is a pattern, a lifetime of crimes. She needs to pay for all of it. So, what do you suggest? I suggest we work together. You want justice for Jake. I want to finish what Richard started. We gather more evidence. We document everything. We build a case so airtight that no lawyer, no matter how expensive, can get her out of it. Then we bring in the authorities with everything tied up in a bow. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one who believes you. Because I have resources you don't. Because I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know how to make sure guilty people go to prison. He stood up. Think about it. You have my number. In the meantime, keep that baby safe. Move him if you haven't already. And watch your back. Sarah is dangerous when she's cornered. He walked out, leaving the folder on the table. I sat there for a long time, reading through everything. Sarah had stolen nearly $2 million over the past 3 years, from her father's company, from clients, from Ben's business accounts. She was good. She'd covered her tracks with shell corporations and offshore accounts. She'd forged signatures. She'd manipulated bank officials. But James was better. He'd documented everything. Every transaction. Every lie. Every crime. My phone rang. Ben again. Dad, she's back. His voice was shaking. She came home an hour ago, but Jake isn't with her. She says he's with her mother in Connecticut, says she needed a break. But I called her mother, and she said she hasn't seen them in weeks. Dad, something's wrong. Sarah's acting strange. She keeps going into the nursery and just standing there, staring at the empty crib. Where's Jake's things? His clothes, bottles, diapers? Gone. Everything's gone. She said she packed it all up to take to her mother's house. But her mother says Sarah never showed up. Dad, I'm scared. What if something happened to Jake? What if... Listen to me, Ben. Don't let Sarah know you're suspicious. Act normal. I'm coming over right now. Dad, what's happening? Tell me. I'll explain when I get there. Don't tell Sarah I'm coming. Don't tell her we talked. Just act like everything's fine. I grabbed the folder and drove to Ben's house. The place was a mansion, 3 stories, 6 bedrooms, pool in the back. Bought with money that should have been mine. Sarah had convinced Ben to force me out of the apartment, out of the business partnerships we'd built together. She'd systematically isolated him from everyone who cared about him, from me, from his mother, from his childhood friends. She'd made him into someone I didn't recognize, someone who chose money over family. But she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated how far I'd go to protect my grandson. Ben met me at the door before I could knock. He looked like hell. Unshaven, eyes red, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. She's upstairs taking a shower. Dad, where's my son? I pulled him outside, closed the door. Yesterday morning, I went for a walk at Morgan Lake. I saw Sarah pull up in her BMW. She got out, looked around, then pulled a suitcase out of her trunk, a big suitcase, heavy. She threw it in the water and drove away. Ben's face went pale. What? I thought it was trash, almost walked away. Then I heard a noise. Faint, like crying. I ran into the water and dragged the suitcase out. Ben, Jake was inside. He was drowning. No? Ben shook his head. No, you're wrong. You have to be wrong. Sarah wouldn't... I pulled him out. He wasn't breathing right. I did CPR. He started coughing up water. I took him to the hospital. He's alive. He's safe. But your wife tried to murder your son. Ben sat down on the porch steps, put his head in his hands. This isn't real. This can't be real. She slapped me at your wedding and you didn't say a word. She's stolen from your business, from your accounts. She's been planning this for years. I handed him James's folder. Read it, all of it. He did. I watched the colour drain from his face as he flipped through pages of evidence. Bank transfers showing Sarah moving money into secret accounts. Emails discussing how to hide assets. Photos of her meeting with men I didn't recognise, exchanging cash. Forged documents with Ben's signature on them. Oh my God, he whispered. Oh my God, she's been stealing from me, from the company. Dad, there's transactions here for hundreds of thousands of dollars. She's bankrupting me. Richard Kellerman, heart attack right after having dinner with her. Too convenient. Ben looked up at me, tears in his eyes. My son, who I hadn't seen cry since he was 12. What do I do? Dad, what do I do? We need to be smart. If we call the police now, she'll run. She's probably already planning to. We need to make her think everything's fine. We need her to confess. On tape. Undeniable evidence. How? You're going to tell her you know. You're going to confront her. And I'm going to be listening, recording everything. She'll try to lie at first, but push her. Make her angry. Angry people confess. What if she runs? I'll be blocking the driveway. She won't get past me. Ben wiped his eyes. Stood up. There was something different in his face now. Something harder. Let's do it. We went inside together. The house was silent except for water running upstairs. Sarah was still in the shower. Ben set up his phone in the living room, recording video, hidden behind a picture frame. I found a spot in the kitchen where I could hear everything. 20 minutes later, Sarah came downstairs, hair wet, dressed in expensive loungewear. She looked relaxed, happy, like she didn't have a care in the world. Ben, honey, I was thinking we should go out for dinner tonight. That new place downtown, the one with the Michelin star. She saw me in the kitchen. Her face changed. What's he doing here? We need to talk, Ben said. About what? About where Jake is. I told you, he's with my mother. I called your mother. She said she hasn't seen you in 3 months. Said she didn't even know Jake was born. So where is he, Sarah? She laughed, high and brittle. Fake. She's confused. You know how old people get. She forgets things. Your mother is 58 and sharp as a tack. She's a lawyer. She doesn't forget things. Ben's voice was getting louder. Where is our son? Why are you attacking me? I'm his mother. I know where he is. He's safe. Prove it. Call your mother right now. Let me talk to her. Let me hear Jake in the background. Sarah's eyes narrowed. I don't have to prove anything to you. You're being ridiculous. I think your father's been filling your head with lies. He's always hated me. He's trying to turn you against me. Dad saw you at Morgan Lake yesterday. He saw you throw a suitcase in the water. Jake was in that suitcase. He pulled him out. He saved our son's life. The room went silent. Sarah's face froze. Then she turned to look at me in the kitchen. Her expression was cold, calculating. She was deciding what to do. What lie would work? That's insane. Your father is delusional. He needs psychiatric help. Ben, you can't believe this. I have a witness, I said, walking into the living room. A man who walks his dog at the lake every morning. He saw you. He's willing to testify. I have his statement, his contact information. The police will believe him. This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer. She pulled out her phone. Ben grabbed it from her hand. No. You're going to tell me the truth. Right now. Where is Jake? Give me back my phone. Where is our son? Ben stepped back like she'd hit him. What? That baby was ruining everything. My career, my body, my freedom. I never wanted children. You knew that. But you insisted. You said it would be good for your image, your business. Well, I fixed it. I got rid of the problem. I solved a problem. Sarah's mask was completely gone now. What was underneath was ugly, twisted. He was crying all the time, needing things, demanding attention. I couldn't work, couldn't sleep, couldn't live my life, so I made a choice, a practical choice. He's alive, I said quietly. I pulled him out. He's in a hospital, safe. You failed. Sarah's face went from rage to something else. Calculation, planning. Then I'll finish what I started. I'll find him. You'll do nothing, Ben said. His voice was shaking. You're done. You're going to prison. For attempted murder, for theft, for everything you've done. You have no proof. It's your word against mine. And I have lawyers. Good ones. I'll say you're lying. I'll say David attacked me. I'll say you're both trying to frame me because you're jealous of my success. We have proof, I said. I held up my phone. Recording. You just confessed, on video, and I have this. I showed her James's folder. Financial records, proof of embezzlement, fraud, identity theft. Your father hired someone to investigate you before he died. This is everything. Sarah stared at the folder, at my phone, at Ben's phone still recording from the picture frame. She was trapped. She knew it. You can't use that, she said, but her voice was weaker now. It's illegal to record someone without consent. Not in this state, I said. One-party consent. Ben consented. It's legal. She looked at Ben. You set me up. He was in the way. She was screaming again. Everything was perfect until he came along. I had a plan. I was going to build an empire. But you wanted a baby. You wanted to play house. Well, I played along. I gave you what you wanted. And then I took it back. Why? Ben's voice broke. Why would you do this? Because I could. Because people like you are weak. You care about things that don't matter. Family, love, loyalty. Those things are chains. I'm free of them. I'm free of you. Ben pulled out his phone, called 911. I need police at 1847 Riverside Drive. My wife just confessed to attempted murder of our infant son. Sarah ran for the door, but I was already there, blocking her path. She tried to push past me. I caught her wrist. She clawed at my face. I held on. Ben grabbed her other arm. Let me go. She was kicking, screaming. "You can't do this. I'll destroy you, both of you. I'll take everything. I have lawyers. I have money. You have nothing," I said. "Nothing but a prison cell waiting for you." The police arrived 8 minutes later. They arrested Sarah right there in the living room, handcuffed her while she screamed threats and curses. The things she said about Jake, about Ben, about me, they weren't human. They were the sounds of something broken and twisted and evil. The detective who took our statements was a woman named Rita Gonzalez. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense attitude. She listened to everything, watched the recordings, looked through James's folder. "This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen in 20 years, she said. "She's not getting out of this. Attempted murder, embezzlement, fraud. She's looking at serious time." "Will Jake be safe?" Ben asked. "I'll put protection on him. Where is he now?" I gave her the hospital information. She made some calls. Within an hour, there were police officers stationed outside Jake's room. James called me that night. "Saw the news? Good work. Thank you for everything. I'm going to keep digging. There's more. I know there is. Maybe others. People like Sarah don't start with attempted murder. They work their way up. Let me know what you find." "I will. And David, you did the right thing. That baby is alive because of you." I hung up, sat in my garage for a long time, looking at my tools, thinking about the last 2 days, how close we'd come to losing Jake, how close Ben had come to losing everything. Evelyn found me there. "Ben called, told me everything. Why didn't you tell me?" "I couldn't risk it, if Sarah had found out." "I would have helped you. I would have been there." She sat down next to me. 40 years, David. When are you going to learn that you don't have to carry everything alone?" "I'm sorry." "I know." She took my hand. "That baby is alive because of you. Our grandson, our family. You saved us all." "I should have acted faster. Should have called the police immediately." "You did what you thought was right. You built a case. You made sure she couldn't get away with it. That takes strength. That takes patience." We sat there in the silence. 2 old people who'd been through hell and come out the other side. The trial took 8 months. Sarah's lawyers were good, the best money could buy, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recording of her confession, the witness from the lake, James's documentation of her financial crimes, Jake's medical records showing near drowning, the forensic analysis of the suitcase, her car's GPS showing she'd been at the lake at the exact time I'd described. She tried everything, claimed postpartum psychosis, said I'd attacked her and she'd been defending herself, said Ben had abused her and she'd been trying to escape, said the confession was coerced. The lies kept coming, but the jury saw through them. Her lawyers brought in psychiatric experts who testified about her mental state. But the prosecution brought in their own experts who testified that Sarah knew exactly what she was doing, that she'd planned it, that she'd shown no remorse. The worst part was listening to her testify, watching her cry fake tears, hearing her spin stories about how she was the victim, how we'd all conspired against her, how she loved Jake and would never hurt him. The prosecutor tore her apart, showed the jury her bank records, her emails discussing how the baby was ruining her life, her text messages to friends saying she regretted ever getting pregnant. Ben testified, told the jury about the financial theft, the manipulation, the lies. He broke down on the stand when they showed him pictures of Jake in the hospital, tubes and wires everywhere, fighting for his life. I testified, told them about the wedding, the slap, the systematic isolation, the morning at the lake, finding Jake in the suitcase, the water in his lungs, the blue lips. Frank Patterson testified, described seeing Sarah at the lake, the suitcase, her panicked behavior. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts, attempted murder, child endangerment, embezzlement, fraud, identity theft. The judge sentenced her to 25 years without the possibility of parole. I was in the courtroom when they read the verdict. Sarah's face didn't change. She just stared straight ahead. No tears, no emotion, just empty. Then she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were cold. The bailiff led her away. Ben fell apart after that. The guilt consumed him. He'd been blind. He'd let Sarah manipulate him. He'd chosen her over his own father. He'd abandoned the people who loved him for a woman who'd tried to murder his child. He showed up at my house one night, drunk, crying. "I'm sorry. God, Dad, I'm so sorry. For everything. The wedding, the apartment, cutting you out. I was so stupid. I let her convince me that you were the problem, that you were holding me back. I should have known better. I should have seen what she was." "You loved her. Love makes us blind sometimes." "That wasn't love. I don't even know what that was. She was using me. For money. For status. I was just a tool to her, a means to an end." We sat on the porch, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up, like we used to do when he was younger, before Sarah, before everything went wrong. "I don't know how to be a father," he said quietly. "I barely know Jake. Sarah kept him away from me. Said I was too busy with work, too stressed. She handled everything, and I let her take over. Then learn. You've got time now. He's safe. She's gone. You can start over." "Can I? Can I really just start over after everything?" "You don't have a choice. That little boy needs his father. He needs you to be strong, to be present, to be there. Will you help me? Will you teach me how to be a dad like you were? Like I was? Like I was?" I shook my head. "I made plenty of mistakes, Ben. I worked too much, missed baseball games, forgot birthdays. Your mother was the one who held everything together. But you were there when it mattered. You saved Jake. You didn't give up on us even after I treated you like garbage. You're my son. That doesn't change, no matter what." He wiped his eyes. "I want to make this right. I want to be better. Then be better, starting now." It took time, but we rebuilt our relationship. Slowly, carefully, like reconstructing something that had been shattered. You never get back the original, but you can make something new. Something stronger, because now you know where the weak points are. Jake came home from the hospital 3 weeks after Sarah's arrest. Ben moved back in with us temporarily. Said he couldn't be in that house anymore. Too many memories. Too much darkness. Evelyn took to being a grandmother like she'd been waiting her whole life for it. She taught Ben how to change diapers, make bottles, read the different types of cries. She was patient when he messed up, encouraging when he got it right. I taught him other things. How to hold Jake so he felt secure. How to talk to him even though he couldn't understand words yet. How to be present instead of just physically there. "Babies know," I told him one night while we were doing dishes, Jake asleep upstairs. "They know when you're really with them and when your mind is somewhere else." Sarah was never really with him. He could feel that. "How do I make sure he doesn't remember her? Doesn't remember what she did?" "You fill his life with better memories, with love, with stability. You show him every day what family really means." Ben sold the mansion, said he couldn't stand being there anymore, bought a smaller house closer to us. 4 bedrooms, normal, real. He quit his high-pressure job at the investment firm, took a position at a local company that let him work from home 3 days a week, said money didn't matter as much as time with his son. I watched him change, become the man I'd always known he could be, the man he'd been before Sarah got her hooks in. James called 6 months after the trial. Found something. I had the body exhumed. Private investigation. The family wanted answers. And? Digitalis poisoning. Tiny amounts over several weeks. Mimics a heart attack. Made it look natural. Can you prove it? I have receipts. Digitalis comes from Foxglove. I have security footage of her visiting him every week, making him meals. I have text messages where she complained about him changing his will. That's enough? More than enough. I'm taking it to the prosecutor. She'll be charged with first-degree murder. Life sentence. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. Slowly, methodically, for money, for an inheritance she felt entitled to. How many others had there been? How many people had crossed her path and paid the price? The murder charge came down 3 months later. Sarah was transported from prison to face the new charges. The trial was faster this time. The evidence was clear. The jury didn't even deliberate overnight. Guilty. Life without parole. This time when they led her away, she looked at me and smiled. Cold. Empty. You think you won, but I'll haunt you forever. Every time you look at that baby, you'll remember what I almost did. You'll remember that you failed to protect him, that I got close, so close. The bailiff dragged her away, but she was wrong. When I looked at Jake, I didn't see what almost happened. I saw what did happen. I saw him alive, growing, learning, laughing. Jake is 3 now. He calls me Papa. He doesn't remember the lake, doesn't remember his mother, doesn't remember anything from those first 6 months of his life. We decided to keep it that way. When he's older, much older, we'll tell him the truth. But for now, he's just a happy kid who likes building things with wood in his papa's workshop, who helps Grandma Evelyn in her garden, who makes his father laugh with knock-knock jokes that don't make sense. Ben never remarried. Said he couldn't trust his judgment anymore. Said he needed to focus on being a father, on making up for lost time. Some nights we sit on my porch, drinking beer, not saying much, just being there. The silence between us is comfortable now, not heavy with all the things we're not saying, just peaceful. I looked at houses today, Ben said one evening. Jake was inside with Evelyn, watching cartoons. Yeah? Thinking about moving again. Somewhere with more land. Jake needs space to run. Maybe get a dog. That's good. There's a place about 2 miles from here. 5 acres. Old farmhouse. Needs work. Needs work is the best kind. You can make it yours. I was hoping maybe you'd help me. With the renovations. Like we used to do. Before. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The grey starting at his temples. The lines around his eyes. The weight of everything he'd been through showing in his face. I'd like that, I said. We bought the farmhouse together. Spent 6 months fixing it up. Ben learned how to frame walls, install drywall, lay tile. Jake helped by handing us tools and getting in the way. Evelyn brought lunch every day, set up picnics in the yard. It was the best 6 months I'd had in years. The house came together. Ben and Jake moved in. We had a barbecue to celebrate. Just family. Just us. No fancy guests. No expensive caterers. Just burgers and corn on the cob, and Jake running around the yard chasing fireflies. This is what I should have wanted all along, Ben said, watching his son play. This, not mansions and status and impressing people I didn't even like. Just this. You got there in the end. That's what matters. Because of you. You saved us, Dad. You saved Jake. You saved me. I just did what needed to be done. No, you did more than that. You could have given up on me. After the wedding, after how I treated you. But you didn't. Why? Because you're my son. That's reason enough. He put his arm around my shoulders. I want to be that kind of father. The kind who doesn't give up. The kind who shows up. The kind who saves his kid when it matters. You already are. Evelyn finally knows the whole story now. Every detail. I told her everything one night when we couldn't sleep. The lake, the hospital, James, the evidence, the plan, all of it. She cried. For days. Not for Sarah. She had no tears for that monster, but for the grandson who almost died, for the son who'd been manipulated, for the family that had nearly been destroyed. "You should have told me sooner," she said, when the tears finally stopped. "I could have helped." "I know. I was trying to protect you. We're partners, David. For 40 years. You don't protect me by shutting me out. You protect me by letting me stand beside you." She was right. Like always. "I'm sorry." "I know." She took my hand. "But you saved him. You saved Jake. That's what matters. You saw what needed to be done and you did it. That takes courage. Or stubbornness. Same thing in your case." She smiled, tired, sad, but real. "What happens now?" "Now we help Ben raise that little boy. We show him what family means, what love means. We make sure he grows up knowing he's wanted, protected, cherished. And Sarah is where she belongs, in prison, for the rest of her life. She can't hurt anyone anymore." But I still had nightmares sometimes. Dreams where I got to the lake too late, where the suitcase sank before I could reach it, where Jake's little body was cold and blue and gone. I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding, and Evelyn would hold me. "He's alive, he's safe, you got there in time." But what haunted me wasn't what happened. It was what almost happened. How close we came to losing him. How if I'd been 5 minutes later, or if I hadn't gone for a walk that morning, or if I'd dismissed the sound as an animal or the wind. "You can't think like that," Evelyn said. "You were there. That's what matters. You were exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there." Maybe she was right. Maybe it was fate or luck or divine intervention. Or maybe it was just an old man who couldn't sleep and decided to take a walk and happened to be in the right place at the right time. Either way, Jake was alive. And I'd make damn sure he stayed that way. 2 years after Sarah went to prison, I got a letter. From her. The return address was the Women's Correctional Facility upstate. I almost threw it away without opening it. Didn't want her poison in my house. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was typed. Neat. Organized. Professional even. "David, I've had a lot of time to think, to reflect on my actions, on the choices I made. The therapist here says I need to take accountability, to acknowledge the harm I caused. So here it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I manipulated Ben. I'm sorry I stole. I'm sorry I destroyed our family. The therapist says that's supposed to make me feel better. It doesn't. Because I'm not actually sorry. I'm just sorry I got caught. You want to know the truth? I still don't understand what I did wrong. Jake was a burden, a problem. I solved it. That's what I do. I solve problems. I eliminate obstacles. I make difficult decisions that other people are too weak to make. But you couldn't accept that. You had to be the hero. You had to save him. You had to ruin everything. So congratulations, David. You won. You got your grandson. You got your son back. You destroyed me. I hope it was worth it. I'll spend the rest of my life in this cage because of you. Every morning I wake up on a hard mattress in a 6x8 cell. Every night I eat food that tastes like cardboard. Every day I'm surrounded by criminals and guards and the smell of desperation. And it's all your fault. But here's what you need to know. I don't regret what I did. I regret that I failed. If I could do it over, I'd do it better. I'd make sure there were no witnesses, no evidence, no way for you to stop me. And I want you to know that every time you look at Jake, I hope you remember how close I came, how fragile his little life was, how easily it could have ended. I hope that haunts you for the rest of your life. Sarah, I burned the letter in the fireplace, watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Evelyn stood beside me. What did it say? Nothing important. Just poison from a poisonous person. Are you okay? I'm fine. She wants me to feel guilty, to feel haunted, but all I feel is grateful. Grateful I was there. Grateful Jake is alive. Grateful she can never hurt anyone again. Good. Evelyn squeezed my hand. Don't let her have any more power over you. She's had enough. She was right. Sarah was locked in a cage. I was free. Ben was free. Jake was free. We had our lives back. And Sarah would rot in prison, alone, bitter, surrounded by people who didn't care about her, the way she'd made everyone else feel. That was justice, real justice, not revenge, just consequences for actions, the natural order of things. Jake started preschool this year. Ben was nervous, worried about letting him out of his sight, worried something would happen. He'll be fine, I told him. Kids are tougher than you think. But what if? What if nothing? You can't live your whole life preparing for worst-case scenarios. You have to let him be a kid. Let him explore. Let him make mistakes. That's how he learns. That's easy for you to say. You didn't almost lose him. I'm the one who pulled him out of the water. I know exactly how close we came. But I also know that you can't protect him from everything. You can just be there when he needs you. Ben dropped Jake off on the first day. Called me 3 times in 2 hours to make sure I thought he was okay. I finally drove to the school myself, just to prove the kid was fine. And he was, playing in the sandbox, making friends, laughing, who had no idea how many people had fought to keep him safe. See, I said to Ben, he's fine, you did good. We did good. You and me and Mom, we gave him this. A normal life, a safe life, a happy life. I watched Jake build sandcastles with another little boy. They were arguing about whether dragons were real. Jake insisted they were. The other boy said they were extinct, like dinosaurs. They settled on calling them sleeping instead of extinct. Kids had a way of making everything simple, of finding solutions that adults couldn't see because we complicated things. I want him to know the truth someday, Ben said quietly. About Sarah, about what happened. I don't want to lie to him. We're not lying. We're just waiting for the right time, when he's old enough to understand, when he's old enough to process it. When will that be? I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe never. You'll know when the time is right. What if he hates me, for choosing her, for not seeing what she was? He won't. Kids are forgiving. They understand that adults make mistakes. They just want to know you love them, that you're there for them. Everything else is details. We watched Jake play until the teacher called the kids inside. He waved at us through the window. Big smile. Missing tooth. Completely unaware of the darkness that had tried to swallow him. Thank you, Ben said. For everything. For saving him. For not giving up on me. For being the kind of father I'm trying to be. You're welcome, but Ben. Yeah? You don't have to try to be a good father. You already are. You show up. You're present. You love him. That's all it takes. Last week, I went back to Morgan Lake. Hadn't been there since the morning I pulled Jake out. Couldn't bring myself to go. Too many memories. Too much trauma. But it was time. Time to face it. Time to reclaim that place from Sarah's shadow. I stood at the spot where I'd dragged the suitcase out. The water was calm, peaceful. Early morning mist rising off the surface. Birds singing. Sunlight filtering through the trees. It was beautiful. I'd forgotten that. In my nightmares, the lake was always dark, menacing. But in reality, it was just a lake. Just water and rocks and trees. Neutral, indifferent to the human drama that had played out on its shores. Frank Patterson walked by with his dog. Buster was slower now, grey in the muzzle. Frank looked older too. We all did. David, haven't seen you here in a while. Took me some time to come back. I understand. How's the little one? Good. Great, actually. Starting preschool. Happy, healthy, normal kid. That's good. That's real good. Frank was quiet for a moment. I think about that morning sometimes. Wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been here. If you hadn't been here. If things had been different. Me too, but they weren't. We were here. We did what needed to be done. That's all that matters. You ever hear from her? The mother? Got a letter once, full of poison and blame, burned it. Haven't heard anything since. Good. Some people don't deserve your thoughts, your energy. Better to just forget them. We walked together along the path, talking about nothing important, the weather, the town, his grandkids, my grandson, normal things, life things. When we parted ways, I felt lighter, like I'd set down a weight I'd been carrying for 3 years. The lake wasn't a place of darkness anymore. It was just a lake. And that morning, 3 years ago, was just a morning. A moment in time that had passed. Jake was alive. That was what mattered. Everything else was just noise. I drove home. Ben was bringing Jake over for lunch. We were going to work on the treehouse. Jake had drawn new plans, a slide, a rope ladder, a trapdoor. Completely impractical but full of imagination and joy. That's what I wanted to remember. Not the suitcase, not the water, not the blue lips and the desperate CPR. I wanted to remember the laughter, the plans, the future, the life that continued because I'd been there at the right moment. Sarah had tried to take everything from us, our family, our future, our joy. But she'd failed. We were still here, still standing, still building tree houses and making memories and being a family. And she was in a cage, alone, forgotten, irrelevant. That was the best revenge of all. Not destruction, not vengeance, just living well, just being happy despite her best efforts to destroy us. Just winning by refusing to let her win. Evelyn and I celebrated our 45th wedding anniversary last month. Nothing fancy. Just dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. The place had changed ownership 3 times since then, but the booth in the corner was still there. Our booth. 45 years, she said, raising her glass. Through good times and bad, through everything. Through everything, I agreed. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? If you hadn't gone to the lake that morning? If Sarah had succeeded? Sometimes, but I try not to. Can't change the past. Can only live with the choices we made. You made the right choices, every time. You saved Jake. You saved Ben. You saved our family. We saved our family. You and me. Together. She smiled. That smile that had made me fall in love with her 47 years ago. Still beautiful. Still real. Still home. What do you think happens next? She asked. For us? For Ben and Jake? Where do we go from here? Forward. That's all we can do. Keep moving forward. Keep building. Keep loving. Keep showing up. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. People complicate things, but at the end of the day, life is just about being there for the people you love. Everything else is just details. We finished dinner, drove home. Ben's car was in the driveway. He and Jake were waiting on the porch. Jake had made us a card at school. Construction paper and glitter and crooked letters that spelled out, "Happy anniversary, Papa and Grandma." Anniversary, Ben corrected gently. That's what I said, Jake insisted. We hung the card on the fridge, next to his drawings, next to the pictures of him building the treehouse, next to the photo from his first day of preschool. Our life, our family, messy and imperfect and beautiful. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my workshop. Tools on the wall, sawdust on the floor, the smell of wood and oil and work. This place had always been my sanctuary. The place where I could think, where I could build things with my hands and watch them take shape. I thought about revenge, about justice, about the difference between the two. I'd had opportunities for revenge, could have made Sarah suffer, could have hurt her the way she'd hurt us, could have been cruel, but I hadn't. I'd been strategic, smart. I'd built a case, gathered evidence, let the system work. And in the end, Sarah had been punished not by me, but by her own actions, by the consequences of her choices. That was real justice. Not personal, not emotional, just accountability, the natural order of things. And we had survived. More than survived. We had thrived. Ben was a good father now. Jake was happy and healthy. Evelyn and I were stronger than ever. Our family had been tested and had come through the fire tempered like steel. Sarah had lost everything. Not because I'd taken it from her, but because she'd thrown it all away. She'd chosen cruelty over love, greed over family, power over connection, and in the end, those choices had destroyed her. I didn't hate her anymore, didn't think about her except when something triggered a memory. She was just a person who'd made terrible choices and paid terrible prices. A cautionary tale. A reminder of what happens when you value the wrong things. The workshop door opened. Ben stood there, holding 2 beers. "Thought you might want company." "Always." He sat down on the workbench. We drank in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that only comes after years of knowing someone, after weathering storms together, after coming out the other side. "I've been thinking about Mum's question," Ben said finally, "about what happens next, where we go from here. And I think we just keep doing what we're doing, being a family, being there for each other, teaching Jake what really matters." "That sounds about right. I want him to know his grandfather, really know you, not just as Papa who builds things with him, but as the man who saved his life, who fought for him, who never gave up. When he's older." "When he's older," Ben agreed. "But even before then, I want him to see what strength looks like, what integrity looks like, what real love looks like, and he'll see that by watching you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded, drank my beer, let the moment sit. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, son. I'm sorry it took almost losing everything for me to remember that. You remember now. That's what matters." We finished our beers, talked about the treehouse, about Jake's progress in school, about Ben's work, about normal things, life things, the boring, beautiful details of everyday existence. When he left, I stayed in the workshop a while longer, looking at the projects in progress. The rocking horse I was building for Jake's 4th birthday, the jewellery box I was making for Evelyn, the bookshelf Ben had asked me to help him build for Jake's room. All of it was connected. All of it was family. All of it was love made tangible through wood and nails and effort. That's what Sarah would never understand. She thought family was a burden. But family was the only thing that lasted, the only thing that mattered when everything else fell away. I turned off the lights, locked the workshop, walked across the yard to the house where Evelyn was waiting, where my life was waiting, where everything that mattered was waiting. Sarah was in prison. I was home. She was alone. I was surrounded by love. She had nothing. I had everything. That was justice. That was revenge. That was victory. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and complete and final.